everyone, and welcome to the February 4th, 2016 episode of Balls Deep Sports Talk with me, your host with the almost Scotty Ball. Thank you so much for finding the show, tuning in this week, whether it be via SoundCloud, YouTube, or my personal favorite, the free Spreaker app. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got a big, exciting show planned for you this week. As always, it is our 51st episode here of the show, and that means that next week will be the final episode of one full calendar year, 52 consecutive weeks of Balls Deep Sports Talk. And I want to thank you again, the listener, for tuning in often and making that possible, as well as Adam, who does a lot of work behind the scenes for the show and helped give the show a reason to exist by putting us on WNLMradio.com, which will hopefully be up and running again in the very near future. But point being, not only will it be a big special show this week as we are we're having our first ever Super Bowl preview extravaganza show here on Balls Deep Sports Talk this week. So aside from that, making this week a big show, next week will be a big show. It'll be our 1 year anniversary and our final episode of that 1 year, and we'll also be recapping the big Super Bowl 50 as well. And then the following week after that, we'll be starting the first episode of our second year's worth of Balls Deep Sports Talk. So these four episodes, last week's episode, and heck, even the episode before that, these 5 episodes here, these are huge, as big and massive and epic and fun of episodes that we've ever done here on the show. And again, I can't thank you, my Balls Deep Army, my weekly Balls Deep goer. I can't thank you enough for, again, giving me and everyone else who makes this show happen a reason to do this show. Now, if you haven't done so already, please, for crying out loud, do this as you're listening to the show or when you are done listening to the show. But connect with me, Scotty Ball, and the Balls Deep Sports Talk show on social media by liking and friending us on Facebook. Simply search Scotty-Ball. And then on Twitter, our Twitter handle is @BDST So those are all the ways that you can connect with me. Let me know what your thoughts are on, current sports topics. Let me know if there's something you want me to talk about, if there's something I said that you strongly disagree with. I very much love hearing both positive and negative feedback from everyone in regards to the show and sports talk in general. And boy, I got to tell you, if you follow me on Twitter, you are in store for lots of gems. I seem to always have at least 1 or 2 weekly Twitter battles with some idiot about something. I shouldn't call him an idiot, but for the sake of entertainment and the argument, we say that. But I actually had an all-time Twitter, my number one biggest, greatest Twitter moment of all time took place this last week, and I will let you know exactly about that when we get to pro wrestling, WWE talk, at whatever point in the show we discuss one of my favorite pastime entertainment forms on television, and that is pro wrestling. But I'm not going to spoil it for you now. You're going to have to stick around, listen to the show, wait to find out what that is. But make no mistake, I had a huge, awesome, super cool Twitter moment earlier this week regarding pro wrestling, and I can't wait to share it with you. I will do so later on in the show. And even if you're not super familiar with wrestling, there's a very good chance that you are aware of and familiar with the individual that gave me my proudest Twitter moment to date. In addition to that, I have a very special call to all of my Balls Deep Vikings fans. If you are a Balls Deep Vikings fan, a fan of the Minnesota Vikings NFL football team, please do me a solid and go visit VikingsDigitalDiaries.com. It is a website that I have recently been brought on the team, and this week marked my first week starting there, and each week for Throwback Thursday, I get to interview a former Minnesota Viking football player, and it was so much fun. I greatly enjoyed it. This week's guest was Bobby Felder, former defensive back on the practice squad for the Minnesota Vikings and currently playing in the Arena Football League for the Orlando Predators. We had all kinds of great questions that we brought up and discussed, and he was a great interview. It's an awesome listen. It really couldn't have went any better, and I'm super excited about how it turned out. So please, again, do me the solid of visiting VikingsDigitalDiaries.com and listening to my one-on-one phone interview with Bobby Felder. And I will be doing an interview every week for Throwback Thursday is the plan here. Guests are tentative to change, but I do know who next week's guest is, and I don't know if I should spoil that here on the show or not, but since you're a listener of the show, I will spoil it for you until told that I can't. Next week's guest is scheduled to be former Vikings fullback. I want to say he played 6 or 7 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings. Fullback Harold Morrow will be my guest next week. So again, check that out, and they are also on Facebook. Simply search Vikings Digital Diaries or just Vikings Diaries, as well as Twitter. I'm pretty sure the Twitter handle is @Vikings Diaries. But so as a Vikings fan myself, it's a super fun new experience that I couldn't be more excited about, and I just, I want to share it with as many people who are interested. So thank you if you do go and give it a listen, and also make sure to tell all the Vikings fans that you know, all the friends and coworkers you have that might be interested as well. Now, in the midst of our extremely massive sized NFL football portion on tonight's show, I will probably mix in a few more reminders of that interview where you can get that at, as well as not necessarily spoilers, but more detail into what you can all expect and look forward to in that interview. But I think that's all we got here for news, show news, Scotty Ball news, shameless plugs and advertisement regarding the show, things like that. So let's get to the official outline for tonight's show of what you can expect to listen to me talk about here on Balls Deep Sports Talk. So, as I mentioned earlier, tonight is our first ever Super Bowl preview extravaganza episode. So needless to say, I will be giving you all the information, storylines, breakdown and analysis and predictions that you could possibly stand for your Super Bowl 50 experience coming up this Sunday. However, have no fear. Just when you thought the Super Bowl talk would be done, we'll probably then get into other NFL news, as there's plenty to discuss involving a former Detroit Lions wide receiver known as Megatron. That's right, I said former, in case you hadn't heard. Also, plenty of other news regarding Johnny Manziel, the NFL draft, a new rule being put into place regarding equal rights hiring process in the NFL for executives, the NFL playing a regular season game in Mexico City, all kinds of football to discuss, in addition to all the Super Bowl stuff that we have to discuss on tonight's show. So it will be a super football heavy themed show here tonight. And well, now that I think about it, this tonight and next week's show will really be the last 2 football heavy shows, more than likely, theme-wise, thematically, on Balls Deep Sports Talk, till right around draft time, one would expect, unless there's maybe a big Vikings trade or, something like that gets me going. But the NFL season has been spectacular this season, as it always is. It's an incredible product year after year, and we will be devoting a lot of time to talking about it on this week's episode. In addition to football talk, there is other sports that we will discuss. Most notably would be NHL hockey and NBA basketball. We'll be talking about my and possibly your Minnesota Timberwolves, who actually won a game last night. So we'll go over what happened there, as well as my other current Wolves takes. We'll maybe take a quick swing at the standings, look around the NBA league-wide as well. In addition to that, we'll do the same thing for the NHL, including my and possibly your Minnesota Wild, who have been stinking for the whole month of January. The entire calendar 2016, the Wild have absolutely stunk. They are in action tonight out in New York taking on the Rangers, and it is the first period as I'm watching this here. First period's winding down, just over 50 seconds to go. Wild have it in the Rangers zone. Can't tell who's who as I'm watching this, but believe it or not, the Wild are up. They're winning 2-0. It was when I first looked, there was 5 minutes. They were 5 minutes into the first period. Wild were already up 1-0. Couldn't believe it. But so we will be talking NHL hockey, and more specifically Minnesota Wild hockey at some point in this show as well. We'll possibly take a quick little look at NCAA college basketball, maybe glance at the Minnesota Gophers, who are absolutely atrocious, possibly look at the top 25 as well. Not a whole lot of baseball news going on unless you're into a specific trade or free agent acquisition here and there, but nothing of too big a news that we'll probably get to it on tonight's show. Tennis, we will recap the results of the Australian Open, as I am one of the only sports talkers, we'll just call it that. I am one of the only sports talkers, easy for me to say, sports talkers in the world that gives completely all-inclusive, equal fairness and attention to all sports and all sports stories. So there has not been very much coverage of, or was not very much coverage of, the Australian Open at all here in the United States. Also, it doesn't help with the time differences when you got events like that taking place in other parts of the world. But we will nonetheless recap what happened in the Australian Open for all of you tennis fans and non-tennis fans as well. We'll possibly take a quick glance into the golf world, as both the PGA Tour and the Euro Tour are underway here in the 2016 season. Not really any soccer news, not really any boxing news. Maybe we'll check in on UFC just a little bit quick, get up to date on, what to look forward to, what's going on in the world of UFC. As I mentioned, we will definitely talk pro wrestling, as we always do, catch you up to date on where we're at with pay-per-views. We got Fastlane coming up here shortly in the month of February, and then it's on to WrestleMania from there. We also got Lucha Underground fully underway in season 2 now of the best wrestling show that you have ever or never seen. One case or the other, I can guarantee it's one or the other. That was on last night. I enjoyed watching that with my son, as we do every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 on the El Rey Network. But so we got pro wrestling to discuss, and like I said, got my Twitter highlight of my life, wrestling related as well, and also a tiny bit of NASCAR related news involving one Tony Stewart. So that is a eager let's see, what other word could we use here? Possibly overly ambitious show content lineup that we got for tonight, but we're going to do the best we can, as we always try here every week on Balls Deep Sports Talk with me, your host, Scotty Ball. Alright, well, let's get to it, shall we?